Bill, why don't you kick us off? And again, I don't know. I have no idea what your predictions are. So these will be really fun to hear in real time. So why don't you kick us off for 2024? What do you see in your crystal ball here, sir?
All right. So I have 5. The first one is that offshoring continues and accelerates a lot to the point that domestic entry-level e-commerce jobs essentially disappear. This has been this is not like new, but man, the amount of people in e-commerce that I have talked to in 2023 that are aggressively embracing outsourcing. And it used to just be like virtual assistants in the Philippines, but now it is like, Amazon managers in Ecuador, it's supply chain analysts in Mexico. I mean, it's everywhere, and it's moving up the org chart. It's not just people that do data entry in the Philippines anymore. So my prediction is that basically entry-level e-com hires are not going to exist. And I'm predicting this specifically because e-com businesses are a little bit more cutting edge. And wait till my 2025 prediction where this is coming to the whole economy. And I will even predict that in 2024, by the end of it, this crosses into the mainstream and the politicians and the culture warriors start getting pissed about it. I think sort of the outsourcing and offshoring of work is going to be a major, major thing, because if we do have any kind of recession or unemployment goes up in 2024, people are going to point the finger right at this. And I think outsourcing kind of crosses into the culture war in 2024. And you may even get some kind of tariff-like protections that are floated by presidential candidates to try to keep jobs on shore.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know if I'd say that like it's going to happen in 1 year. I could see it being much more of a 2 to 4 year thing. But I think especially for e-commerce store owners, like it's just been a challenging year on the profitability front for a lot of stores. And if your biggest line item apart from COGS is going to be your team, right? So that just seems ripe for, and just more and more people that I know. It's one thing when you know that is a possibility. It's another thing when you're talking to friends over beers or in a mastermind or on the forums, and you're like, oh wait, what? You have a supply chain manager in Mexico? Like what? Or in the wherever it is, makes it much more real for you. So I think you're spot on.
Yep, I think you're gonna hear about it a lot. What's yours?
All right, my first one is I think it's going to be a bloodbath year for venture-backed DTC companies. And we're going to see some incredible fire sales for brands that you otherwise would have never expected to go for that little. So, I mean, we've already seen some of this. But if you look at it now, like June 2022, we're about 18 months-ish from where things really slowed down. And so if you're thinking about companies that have tried to raise, that had raised money, that had some runway, cash in the bank, they haven't been able to raise any of them that have had not really good dialed in business models on the e-com front. And I think you probably have a lot of companies that are at the point where they're very quickly running out of cash. Interest rates have gone up over the last 12 to 18 months. So the debt service on any that they have has also gotten more expensive. So I just think you have a lot of companies that are pinched, have been being pinched for a while, and it's going to come to a head in 2024, where you're going to see some well-known brands get sold for probably 10 cents on the dollar, primarily for the brand equity and the IP. So we had it last year. I think it'll accelerate in 2024.
I think so too. It's going to be, Thrasio is bankrupt, right? Now that doesn't mean that they're winding down operations, but they're going to have to divest assets. There's a ton of other Amazon aggregators out there too. And, I know you're not talking about aggregators. You're talking about Allbirds is public and their stock's in the toilet. There are like real brands here that are not going to make it till the end of next year, which I totally agree with, because they're fundamentally built for a zero interest rate policy world where they've not made money. They've never made money. They have no feasible track to making money. And suddenly capital is not free. And just the question though, is I kind of thought they would start to hit the wall this year in 2023. And it hasn't even been as bad as I expected. So I feel a little bit like I just keep moving the date out on this, but I agree. Like it's got to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah. And I think so. You mentioned Thrasio, a little bit of a rabbit trail. Wasn't it one of your predictions that, Thrasio obviously went bankrupt in this year. Didn't you predict that they were going to go bankrupt either a year or two before? Like, wasn't that one of your predictions?
Yes. If you had gone to 2 years ago, I had to admit that I was wrong on this episode last year about Thrasio going bankrupt in 2022, but I was not wrong. I was just early. So thank you for reminding everybody that I was in fact correct.
Yeah, no problem. I was just thinking about that. Bill's like, thank you for bringing that up. But yeah, you definitely nailed that one. All right, your next prediction for 2024, Bill.
So my next prediction for 2024 is that retail gets very, very hard for challenger brands and D2C brands. And I'll unpack what I mean by that. There has been over the last several years a rush to retail, right? As Facebook CPMs and CPAs have gotten higher, all the digitally native brands want to be in Target. They want to be in Walmart. They want to be at retail, right? And brands have run to that with varying degrees of success. Some people have done a great job. A lot of people have found that retail is pretty difficult and a very different ballgame than D2C. So for however hard retail, doing business with brick and mortar retailers was as a brand in 2023, I think it's going to get significantly harder in 2024. And here's why. If there is a recession, retailers are going to feel it. They're going to feel it first. They're kind of the day-to-day shopping. They're going to feel it. And when they feel it, they start looking really close at the productivity of every inch of the shelf space they've got. And they're going to start to reconfigure their assortments to lower priced items. Most D2C brands are luxury goods, higher priced, bigger margin stuff, but luxury discretionary. This is kind of who we are, right? You don't sell staples on the internet necessarily. But who does sell staples and who's really good at retail is Procter & Gamble, right? And all of the big legacy D2C guys. And when the going gets tough, the tough get going, and the tough are the Procter & Gambles, right? They will outspend you. They will out rebate you. They will lose money for a year or two to maintain their shelf space. And a lot of retailers kind of take a last in, first out approach when they're cutting shelf space. And a lot of the D2C brands are the last ones in. They'll be the first ones out. So I think for a lot of reasons, D2C brands that are in retail are going to have a hard time growing or even staying in. And if you're not in retail, I think you're going to have a hard time getting in.
Is this predicated on the fact that you think there's going to be a recession coming in 2024? Because it seems like that's part of it.
That's part of it. But even if there is not, I still think it's going to get hard. I think a lot of retailers have gotten out over their skis a little bit with D2C brands. And even if the world is flat next year, I think people are going to take a hard look at their assortments.
Interesting. Yeah, you know way more about that world than I do, but yeah, it's a fascinating one.
And some people are explaining it, and if you have a great product and a great brand and people are in stores and it's flying off the shelves, you'll probably be fine. But if you are like a sexy brand that a retailer brought in to seem like they were cool, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah. Have you seen retail kind of with Natural Dog just get harder and reorders just a little bit more? Yeah. Just have you seen the retail game get harder over the last 6 months?
Yeah. I mean, part of it is coming from my direct experience that our retailers have kind of came back and asked us to justify being there. Let's go through SKU by SKU. That we were excited to bring you in. We brought in a lot of your SKUs, but man, the microscope they put you under. Because they're starting to feel it too. Retail has not had the strongest year. So they're feeling it. They're looking at every square inch of their shelf space, and we've done okay hanging in there, but we're not predicting the huge growth that we had, over the last year. We're not predicting that again in 24.
Yeah. My next prediction, Bill, very interested to hear your take on this one. Nikki Haley is going to be elected our next U.S. president in an election with more disinformation than any we have had in past history. So thought process on this, and I realize
this is maybe I love that you're putting it out there. The guts on this one. I love it.
This may end up being a Shopify is going to get taken over by a hostile takeover by e-commerce fuel style prediction. But here's my thought on this, and maybe part of it is just manifesting. You look at the number of people I have talked to on both sides of the aisle that have said, how in the world do we have 340 million people, and the best two candidates we can have for president are either 80 or approaching 80. And you look at Trump, and I think there's some real issues there. We don't talk about politics on the podcast or in the forums, but I mean, there was so much turmoil and I think some real existential issues that happened last time during the transfer of power. And you look, even among Democrats, the majority of them, I think 60, maybe even 70% don't want Joe Biden to run for a second term, right? And you have so many people who are saying, how are these our candidates? How is this like the inevitability that we are hurtling towards? And I don't know. I feel like I have some faith in the American populace that something is going to change, that something is going to happen to spice things up. And I also think, like, if you look at Nikki Haley, she is one of, if not the most moderate contenders on the Republican side. I also think Donald Trump will probably lose more of the women's vote than he did last time, based on a number of things. So I don't know the immediate path, but I think there is and I still think it's probably a long shot, but I think there's a higher probability than most would suspect that she can become our president. So, Bill, thoughts?
I think that's super interesting. Who do you think will be the vice president?
Zero idea. I have no idea who would be the VP.
Some of my friends in YPO floated a Joe Manchin, Nikki Haley ticket, which I think would be phenomenal, super interesting, and potentially winnable. And I think that is the only thing about Nikki Haley is, like, does she end up on the ballot? I mean, Trump is crushing her in the polls. I mean, like, yeah, a lot of the people, we talk to, and, a lot of people have a lot of problems with Trump. But the fact of the matter is he's crushing in the polls. Like, no one is close. And, if he wins the primary, he's on the ballot, and, like, good luck, Nikki Haley, with your write-in candidacy. I mean, I could see she's not going to be as vice president, I don't think. I think you might have a Donald Trump Vivek ticket on the Republican side.
Oh. Yeah, you might be right. I think part of the prediction on the Haley side, I think for that to happen, they would have to square off in the primaries on stage at a debate. Because I think if you put them right next to each other, Haley seems like she's very composed, very, very reasonable. Especially next to Trump, whose kind of tendency is to tend to bully a little bit, I think that would have to be part of the calculus to put them both in the same platform, same screen, and see them next to each other. I think that would have to happen.
That will never happen. Donald Trump has not attended a single debate. He knows what you just said is true. He's not going to any debates. Like, that's never going to happen. The thing you just described.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think the pressure, though, for that to happen becomes much stronger when it's the Republican primary. Like, he can do this in the beginning because he's so far ahead. But this is the primary for the Republican presidency, or the Republican nomination for the presidency, your calls becomes much harder to resist that. And I think it also becomes like he has a past history in the past of looking like when there was people in like, I live in Arizona, in the last Arizona gubernatorial election, one side would not debate, and he was ridiculing that side for not doing that. So I think some of those come back to haunt him a little bit if he's not willing to debate in his primary for the Republicans. So you're right. I think
assuming he's consistent, he's not. There's no logical consistency right there. And there's my prediction: is you will never see Donald Trump on a debate stage. It will not happen.
Yeah,
in 2024, I don't think it will.
Yeah. You may be right. We'll see. It's a little bit of a long shot, but I think it's not as much of a long shot as we think. Anyway, let's go to your next one, sir.
So while we're on geopolitical events, I predict that we're going to see another war or terrorist attack or some sort of major global, negative event. I mean, we had the war in Ukraine in 2022. We had the horrible attacks in Israel by Hamas recently here in 2023. I think there's going to be another one. I mean, if China invades Taiwan, if it's, some other terrorist attack, like there's going to be something. I'm afraid that we are spread too thin and all of our enemies know it. The world feels like a less stable place than it's been in a long time. It would not surprise me if there is another major event like that.
Yeah. Really hope it's not a China invasion of Taiwan. That'd be a hot mess that'd be catastrophic.
Yeah, I mean, it may be, Israel attacks Iran. It could be Iran nukes Israel. Like there could be some major, continuation of that situation. But it doesn't feel like a stable place. So I expect a major geopolitical event in 2024, even outside of our own election, which, by the way, even increases the instability.
I think that could be in and of itself probably the most, with like I mentioned earlier, some of the AI issues and disinformation issues, and just it's going to be a rough election. So yeah, I agree with you. I think you're spot on. We're going to see something. My next one is where I got to eat crow a little bit. Interest rates stay unchanged in 2024 was my prediction.
I hope you haven't already traded on this one.
Which as we started recording, Jerome Powell goes on a record recording this December 2023 as saying that he's not changing interest rates this month, but expects to drop rates 3 times next year. So I think I'm going to add one more on this. I originally did not put this one on here because I don't know, people kind of sometimes tire of the cryptocurrency stuff. But given the fact that it got totally cut out from underneath me, I'm going to say Bitcoin ends 2024 at 60K or above. And I think the reason is twofold. One, I don't think we're ready for rates to get cut. Like, I think I'm surprised that I really like Jerome Powell. I think what he's done over the last 12 to 18 months on the rates front has been fantastic and has taken some guts. I don't think we're ready to cut. We still got a red hot, at least on just an aggregate level, labor market. I think inflation is still above what is getting reported. I mean, you look at the grocery store and it's just crazy. I think, and we've got, an insane amount of debt that may or may not play into things on a national level this next year. But you also have Bitcoin starting to hit mainstream with a bunch of ETFs set for approval in January, which I think will bring in a lot of money. So if we do start cutting rates and we have, a lot more people are able to access Bitcoin on the ETF side, I think it's very feasible we could see Bitcoin ending next year above 60K. So that's going to be my sub in, given Jerome totally cut me out at the knees with a machete on this one.
Well, so I think it makes a lot more sense if you know that 3 interest rate cuts are coming, right? Because I continue to believe that Bitcoin is a ZERP phenomenon. So I think Powell cuts rates, more easy money, people gamble more on Bitcoin. And I'm poking you a little bit on purpose in that Bitcoin is basically a gamble. But I think, yes, there's more loosey-goosey money. People gamble on crazy stuff. I put Bitcoin in the same bucket. I think it's all narrative, very little fundamentals. And so if the narrative is there and people are afraid of inflation and the Fed's cutting rates, yeah, I think Bitcoin could hit 60K.
Would you say ZERP? What was that phrase you used?
Zero interest rate policy.
Oh, okay. I had not heard that one.
The ZERP phenomenon.
ZERP phenomenon.
Like cheap Uber rides, cheap DoorDash, WeWork, all these are ZERP phenomenons. None of these things exist if money is not free.
Where are you getting cheap DoorDash?
All this stuff, NFTs, they're all ZERP phenomenons, all of them.
I've ordered DoorDash maybe 2 or 3 times in my life, and every time I do it, I end up paying $40 for a chicken sandwich. What is this cheap DoorDash of which you speak?
Oh, it used to be, but you can't do that anymore. Yeah, it's crazy expensive. But all these venture capital funded, millennial lifestyle things that were so nice, it's over. Because capital is not free anymore, so you can't subsidize it.
Yeah. All right. So Bitcoin at 6K by the end of the year, at or above. Bill, your next one.
So this one's a little bit more e-commerce centric, which is that multi-channel advertising strategies win in 2024. So let me unpack what that means. I think OTT TV advertising will get big, meaning over the top. Mm-hmm. So advertising on Prime Video, advertising on Netflix, advertising on Hulu, advertising on these streaming platforms. Amazon has just launched the ability to buy video ads on OTT stands for over the top. So over the top of the cable package is where that comes from. Amazon, you can now buy video ads on Prime streaming programmatically, meaning you self-serve. You don't have to call them and deal with a salesperson. You can just buy them on Amazon as a seller. And I think that's coming to all the other platforms. I think you're going to see a lot. I know anecdotally, a lot of bigger brands doing really, really well on TV. Seeing really, really low CPMs. And it's been hard now. You kind of had to, there's a couple platforms where you can buy kind of remnant TV, but it's been a pain in the butt. I think it's going to get a lot easier and you're going to see a lot more brands flock to TV. So that's one channel I think is going to grow. I think TikTok shops is going to become more important. I think TikTok's going to spend a lot of their own money subsidizing that. I think asterisk, I am an investor in Drew Sinaki's Postpilot, but I am because I think direct mail is going to continue to grow as a multi-channel strategy. Every time we do it, we see really great ROIs, even when we do holdout tests. I mean, better than Facebook. Like, it's great for reactivation. I've got enough data to say direct mail really works. I think more brands are going to figure that out. And I also think Facebook, and because of that, so all that is going to start to work. And what's going to happen in parallel is that Facebook CPMs are going to explode because of the election. You're going to have all this political advertising money come into Facebook, Instagram ads, and it's just going to get worse and worse as you get closer to the election in late 2024. And brands are going to go, my CPMs are through the roof, and they're going to start looking for other ways to acquire customers, and that's going to push them into OTT TV ads, direct mail, TikTok shops, like all this other stuff that's not Facebook. That kind of migration is really going to continue. So I think brands are going to have to look outside of Facebook if they want to really acquire customers in 2024.
Yeah, I love that prediction. I think that's really well thought through. TikTok, the fact they subsidize, and I don't know a ton about this. Bill, maybe you can fact check me here. So is TikTok actually, for TikTok shops, are they actually giving people, I believe they're giving people like store credit to shop at TikTok shops to be able to help drive the adoption of this, which is, I mean, kind of brilliant on one hand, but also kind of crazy on the other hand. I mean, I guess it depends how much they're losing to drive adoption, but I can't even think of anyone. I mean, some people give away free. I guess that's maybe not totally novel, but on a digital platform, can't think of anything that compares to that.
Well, Facebook did it when they launched Facebook Shops last year. They gave like everybody $5 or $10 off their first order on Facebook Shops. But I actually mean more. TikTok is just prioritizing the shop content, the shop enabled stuff in the algorithm. So if they dangle, they're going to dangle really cheap CPAs for brands, right? And so brands are going to go, oh, great CPAs on TikTok. Here we go. So I think that they're just they have their Shopify integration going now. TikTok shops are easier to set up than ever. It's still a hot mess and people get banned all the time, and it's a mess, but it exists. And I think that product will get more mature next year. And TikTok, I think, is strategically very committed to it. So as long as TikTok does not get banned in the United States, which I still hope happens, but if that does not happen, I think you'll see TikTok shops becoming a larger portion of people's ad budgets next year.
Yeah, agree. We've known some people that have done some just had phenomenal success on the platform and taken the drug dealer approach, giving it away for free. Speaking of platforms, this is a good segue. My next prediction. I think somebody is going to release. If you look at the platform and the landscape for AI-driven marketing help, you have ChatGPT. You have some services that will like kind of take a podcast or a video or some type of content and be able to create all the headlines and the descriptions and all that kind of stuff. And they work, I would say 6 out of 10. They're not great, right? They're very average from what I've seen. So you have all these different desperate, platforms and tools and the things to do things, but the technology is getting better, much faster. The imaging technology is phenomenal. Like what we're seeing with DALL-E 3 and ChatGPT, like it's just unbelievable. I think 2024 is going to be the year that someone releases, and probably maybe even in the early phases, but a very full-fledged AI-driven marketing platform to handle content creation, testing, and repurposing that's actually good and you could actually use to meaningfully streamline and automate your marketing, all the way from content to maybe managing on the paid spend side too. So I think we're going to see, I don't know how evolved it's going to be, but kind of like in the early days of when we had all the attribution software like Northbeam like 2-3 years ago, I think we're going to see something emerge because there's a huge gaping hole for it. And I feel like where we are to the potential promise, you can get there, but it takes a lot of intermediary work with yourself, your team, kind of massaging some of the tools. But I'd love to see, and I'd love is a strong word. I think we will see it. I think we'll have it'll be great for us in the short to medium term. I think it'll be harder for the industry in the long term because just everyone's going to start using it, and then it just floods the market with kind of very similar things. But that's what I think we're going to see.
So, I mean, you're picturing some sort of tool that plugs into your Facebook ads, sees which content is doing well, uses Midjourney or Pika or some of these new ones that just come out to regenerate different versions of the content, recut it, upload it right back into Facebook, see how it runs, and just iterate infinitely, like basically Facebook ads on autopilot. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, and not even just Facebook ads. I think like Adobe Suite but for marketing and AI, right? Like Adobe's got a whole platform, whether you're doing Photoshop or Illustrator, whatever it is, something like that is going to let you be able to content generation, content repurposing that's actually good, creating stories, managing Facebook, testing Facebook creative really well with a lot of different creative ideas, the whole thing, the whole gamut. So
just yes, across the board.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, I think the tech is there. There's a huge market for it. There's a massive demand and appetite for it. I think we just nobody's pulled it together quite like that good. And plus, we're going to see a lot more advancements in AI this year because it's just going at such a crazy rate. So we'll see. But
it does feel like it is waiting to get pulled together. Like all of the little pieces, you can see it coming. Like the video generation from text, people are starting to do the product photography generation, with AI, just from your product shots, putting them in different videos or different. It's all kind of right there. I recently used something called Opus. I think it's opus.pro, where you can upload a whole podcast into it and it cuts it into YouTube shorts and puts the captions on top of it. It was really amazing. It does seem like we're close to some really fast content iteration.
Yeah, or even some of the video AI tools. I mean, imagine just being able to, let's say it just says, hey, Bill, go out and get a bunch of B-roll for me of your dog supplements, of the dogs eating, and just load up as much custom B-roll as you have. We'll supplement it with dog stuff. We can make it match style. We can take the video, cut it down. We can try different headlines. You just load it in and it automatically dumps out 20 different versions for you to be able to test on Facebook Ad Creative, and maybe even integrates with Facebook. It can test those for you. I mean, so much of what is out there that can be done, I think, can be automated with the right pipes and connectors and a little bit better advancement where we are. Like I said, I think we're 6 out of 10. I think you get to 7 or 8 out of 10 and it starts making sense. So I think we're right on the cusp of that happening.
I think so too. I intentionally did not make any AI predictions this year because you can get I think it could get pretty wild. It is beyond my ability to see where this goes at this point. I think we are rapidly hurtling towards a legitimate singularity in the next couple of years. So it's already going faster than my ability to predict.
When you say singularity, do you mean, I think for a long time I thought that meant some kind of consciousness that was not human, but do you mean more along the lines of just a turning point that is just a massive turning point in human history?
Many people describe artificial general intelligence as a singularity, but definitionally a singularity is a technological advance that changes everything to the point that you cannot predict what happens after that. It is a prediction wall. It changes absolutely everything to the point that the past is no longer predictive of the future. And so many people talk about inventing AI as an example of the singularity. Other people talk about, inventing the ability to kind of manipulate matter, at will, like the ability to teleport things, or, infinite energy is another singularity. There's lots of things like this. AI, artificial general intelligence, that strong AI is definitely a singularity. And to me, it seems like that's the one that's closest.
Yeah.
I mean, just to the point of crazy stuff. I joke with my family today that AI has taken one of my jobs, because I figured out that whenever my mom texts me about tech support questions, I can just put it in ChatGPT and send it back to her, and it's as good as me. Right. So there's so many already, and I feel like a broken record on this topic. ChatGPT is already better today than many people at their jobs, and their employers just don't know it yet. And this is the worst it will ever be. And I think the singularity, I hinted to it in one of my other predictions with the offshoring, because the other thing too is ChatGPT makes a Filipino sound like an American, right? And so you now have, because of COVID-19, you have American companies trained that offshoring is a thing. And now offshore employees can sound like Americans much better with GPT-4 or 5 or 6. I mean, it's going to get weird. And so I actually, the thing that keeps me up the most at night is the unemployment thing. just specifically domestic unemployment. Because whether it's the AI that takes your job or whether it's a Filipino with the AI that takes your job, either way, you're on unemployment, and pretty soon you got a pitchfork in your hand. That is the thing that worries me the most. I'm not prepared to predict it for 2024, but I would really love someone to explain to me how that doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's funny. I may have shared this story before, but in my early days, like I think second year in investment banking, I was on a trip with my managing director, who is super sharp guy, Harvard grad. And we're sitting in this airport and reading something. We're reading an article, and somehow the discussion of outsourcing came up. I think it was Thomas Friedman, like The World is Flat. That was the book that maybe we were talking about. Somehow we got talking about it, and his point was, I don't see how labor and wages converge to the same point or in the long term. Like if you have equal access to talent, smart people across the globe, the internet, knocks those barriers down. How do those wages not converge for countries right now that aren't making that much to rise, and for developed nations for those skills to fall? And at the time, I didn't have a very good eloquent argument, but I was like, no, that can't happen. Like, there's stuff in the United States you can't get other places. And I had that. And every time I hear a discussion like this, an argument like this that you just made, Bill, which I think has a lot of merit. And I mean, we're starting to see that more and more, especially with remote work that just accelerated that. I think about that discussion, and I think he's right. I think over the long run, you have those wages start to converge right, at the same place,
which is not great for us, right? Because we make the average global wage. We're way up here, and the Philippines is way down there, and like you got to meet in the middle. It's going to be great for them. It's going to be real bad for us.
Yeah. Well, when you say us, I think if you're a business owner, and it can potentially be a huge boon if you're a business owner, but if you are an employee and you don't have defensible skills, it's much more problematic. So,
well, on that bright note, my last prediction is my last prediction is not AI related. It does come back to M&A. I think you will see in e-commerce a pretty stable M&A market. I think it'll be better than 2023, but I think you'll start to see more deals, but I think multiples will kind of stay in the same spot. I don't see multiples kind of going much above 3.5-ish for e-com businesses. Exceptions of course exist, but I think multiples are going to stick in the same spot. You're going to start to see more sellers acknowledge that this is where multiples are now. So you're going to see more businesses transact, but I don't think multiples are going anywhere in 2024.
You're not going to update this prediction with Jerome's bombshell that we're dropping rates 3 times next year that you got, like I did, like I cheated on my Bitcoin prediction.
He didn't say how big the rate drops were. I don't think. I mean, 3/4 point drops isn't enough to bring back the heyday. So I mean, yes, that will help. I agree, that will definitely help. Yeah. And that's why I think stuff will start clearing the market, but I don't think multiples are really going that far.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty safe bet. These cycles take a long time, and I think there's still enough of a hangover from last time's party. It's going to take a while to sober up and people to get, and that's even if interest rates went down. So I think you're right on there. My last one is that I think we're going to see either the rise or the re-rise of the personal brand, and I need to quantify this a little bit more so it's a little more definable and actually measurable. Which I'll do in just a minute here. But the thesis behind it is AI is accelerating. It's taking things over. I think we're going to have AI start to power more of everything, including, like I mentioned, my last prediction, a marketing platform. It's getting harder to trust what you see online. There's a lot of disinformation around. And people like humans. People, we're designed to interact with other humans and meet with people and be communal and we're designed to trust other people, not machines. And so I think with all of that happening, and with the so much AI generated content out there, and just where that is going in general, I think people are going to become much hungrier for connecting with real people, almost like Flo from Progressive, but that's not really a brand, a person you trust. She's a spokesperson, but I think we're going to look for people that you deeply admire and trust. And so I think the personal brand is becoming more valuable. And so a couple actual like tactical or like more tangible predictions on that, I think you're going to see someone's personal brand that we know on Twitter get purchased. Maybe someone who's built up a great audience, has a lot of respect. Kind of traditional wisdom is that you have a personal brand, you can't sell that, right? Like it's not, that's so tied to you that you can't. It's not a transferable asset. But I think brands are going to start looking at that and saying like, wow, they have a real connection here with humans that's getting exponentially harder to create. So we're going to buy you to come over and be in our corner. So I think you'll see someone on Twitter get their personal brand purchased, or at a minimum, you're going to see people start talking more about who the face of their brand is, even for really small companies in the 10 million or below range, maybe 5 to 10 million, and cultivating that much more carefully. And who's that person? Do we bring someone in? So almost like influencer marketing on steroids, but one person who's dedicated to your brand. Anyway, so that's my final prediction of the year.
I think it's hard to get your personal brand bought because like, then what? You're an indentured servant forever to whoever bought it. But I think it is very reasonable that you're going to see AI generated people with personal brands, and those get bought and sold. I mean, people have been predicting that forever. But I think it is coming, and fast, because now you can do I don't know if you just saw on Twitter the other day, 25 minutes of a whole news network with anchors and everything, all AI generated. They were real people. So like you're going to start to see some of these, and there's like one or two, examples of AI people that have decent followings. But I think you're going to see that a lot, and those can trade for sure.
See, I'm pushed back on that. I don't think there's going to be a fringe minority. And maybe this is me just being an old Gen Xer, kind of being out of touch with things. I don't think people want to go really root for or visit or follow an AI generated personality. I don't know a lot of people who want to. Maybe I'm way off base here, but I don't think that's what people want. I think those are novel. They're interesting. I think people, well, that's the other thing too, is I think we're going to have something in the next couple of years that is, well, you absolutely will know, because an AI personality online can't show up to a live in-person concert. It can't show up to unless we get to a point where there's absolutely no way you can discern what's going on in the world. Like the disinformation is so bad that outside of like Tucson or Charlotte, like you have no idea what's happening because you can't see it with your own eyes. I think if we get there, then we got way bigger problems. But apart from that, the reason people love Taylor Swift is because she's a real person. She shows up. She actually cares for people. Like, she's really good with her fans. She's a great musician. She puts on a heck of a concert. Taylor Swift, you can't have an AI Taylor Swift. It doesn't work. The things that matter to people, that resonate, AI Taylor Swift singing about heartbreak doesn't mean anything because it's an AI bot, right? Like, Taylor Swift is Taylor Swift because she's human, and there's no way.
I think you're making the all or nothing mistake here. I'm not saying that Taylor Swift is irrelevant. There will always be Taylor Swifts, plural, right? Like, there will always be megastars, right? There will always be celebrities. I'm not saying there won't be human celebrities, but I think you're missing the entire long tail of influencers. I mean, you're missing people with millions of followers that don't need to be seen in person because they never do anything except record content like this, in front of their computer. They're video game streamers, they're Twitch streamers. I mean, there are people who are legit famous that no one ever sees in person. And also, by the way, have you ever seen Mr. Beast in person? Do you know? Like, it's not like Mr. Beast shows up at the Grammys. Like, you don't need him to, right? He appears only in his own videos, right? Like, Marquise Brownlee, the tech reviewer, he reviews Apple products. That guy, I never seen him in person. He doesn't need to go to the Grammys. Millions of people follow him. He could be AI generated in the future if the AI generation was good. I think it doesn't mean that Taylor Swift does not exist, but I do think you can absolutely have a parallel class of AI generated celebrities that you might not even know are AI generated.
I agree with you, and I think they will be there. But I think the difficulty of them gaining traction on anywhere even remotely the same as a human celebrity it's not going to happen. Like, I think human celebrities will continue to dominate 85% of the content creators, of the people who sell music, all of that. I think people really care. You're right. You don't have to see. It's like The Matrix, right? I was just rewatching some of the Matrix scenes the other day. And you're right, some people don't care, but I think most people like they actually care. Like, is this a real human being? Can I trust what they say? Is there knowledge coming out of a lived experience that they have, like, and real opinions, or am I just being totally sold, a bunch of aggregated information from a million different websites? So I disagree with you. I think for the very foreseeable future, the fact that even if you don't see them in person or don't need to see them in person, the fact that they are human, that is verifiable, and that there's actually a real human being behind that is a massive differentiator. And even if it's only just a little, I just think that's how humans are wired. That's how I'm wired. I don't see it taking off beyond a somewhat niche market.
Let me just prove to you how you're wrong right now. Not even in 2024. So
Bill's like, I'm an AI bot. I've been, how I told you, my mom was doing ChatGPT. This whole thing has been AI, and you've been arguing with the AI bot.
Man,
mic drop.
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Drop.
I was real until like 4 months ago, and then I switched myself out. You've been talking with an AI version of me. But like, as an example, right? And this is kind of my point of both and, right? You said like AI influencers will never approach human influencers. I'm telling you, dude, they already have. Let's take a human, like legit celebrity, right? Mario, I just picked this randomly. Mario Lopez, right? You know who Mario Lopez is? Like the guy from Saved by the Bell, his skater in Saved by the Bell.
Yeah, the man who never ages. He's like 80. He's like 107 and looks like he's been the same age for 40 years.
Right? Like Mario Lopez, like real celebrity, right? I didn't cherry pick this. I just, so Mario Lopez got 2.7 million followers on Instagram, right? Legit. If we're using Instagram followers as a measure of fame, which I would argue it's a decent proxy. But Mario Lopez, 2.7 million followers. There is an AI influencer called Little Miquela, Lilmiquela. She's been around for a couple of years. She's AI generated. She has 3.5 million on TikTok and 2.7 million on Instagram. People don't care. I mean, like, she is on par with Mario Lopez. She's as famous as Mario Lopez by that measure. Already, it's 2023. Where's this going to be in 5 years?
No, I agree with you. Like, of course, you're going to have examples that will, break the rule. But I've never heard of Mario Lopez. But I think the more important argument is that you'll definitely have them, but there's a good chance a lot of those people that are like, I might go follow that person right now just because it's just to see the technology, because it's like a novel thing. It's an intriguing thing. You'll definitely have them, and I think they'll be there. But I think the people that really drive culture, the people that really drive art and music and things like that, I think they'll be human. And we would obviously be on both sides of this. So this will be interesting when you and I are, even grayer than we are now in a decade. We should come back and talk about this, because it will be fascinating to see how it plays out. But I don't know. I think people, even if they never see Taylor Swift, they want to know she's human. And I think that imbues and validates so much.
I agree with it completely, but I think it disqualifies AI celebrities.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's the level to which they rise. So we'll have to come back to it. But points well made. Bill, I think we should cap this episode off with something that is something that, like, The Psychology of Money, one of my favorite books. I've talked about it numerous times on this podcast. My favorite chapter in that whole book is one how it talks about it's so easy to be cynical and play the skeptic and look at the future and see like all the problems and the dangers and things that are coming. But if you look at like the arc of human civilization, and particularly over the last like 200 years, it's pretty much up and to the right, with a couple potholes along the way for sure. But in general, it's very intellectually seductive, I think maybe is his term, to think that you're going to be, that the world's going to be worse. But in general, it's usually better. So anyway, I just wanted to leave us with that kind of parting note here, because I tend to fall into that sometimes. I don't know if you do, Bill, but so just a nice little backdrop maybe to take away from all of our predictions of fake celebrities, end of the world doom, geopolitical stuff.
Always easier to be like negative, but in general, the arc of progress is up and to the right.
Yeah. Thank goodness. So, well, Bill, thank you for doing this again. Thank you everyone for listening. Hope you have had a wonderful 2023 and a fantastic kickoff to, or very soon kick off to 2024. Looking forward to another year. And Bill, always love doing these episodes.
We'll see you next year.
Thanks for being up for it.